My plan. Get up front and do the usual stuff. Thank Bob for the lovely introduction. Thank the SLT for inviting me to speak today. Thank all of you for taking the time to actually be here today. Thank you to those of you who are watching on Zoom or Facebook for being here. And then I was going to... God's plan. God's plan is we're going to jump right into heart coherence. How many of you have heard Bob's talk from last week? Yeah, pretty awesome, yes? He talked about heart coherence and how the heart is so powerful, far more powerful than our brain. It emits a much bigger energy field than our brain. And when we can align our heart and our brain, we can do so much more good in the world. So I'm going to invite everyone to jump into some heart coherence with me right now so that we're all on the same page starting this. So I invite you to uncross your legs, put both feet flat on the floor, let your hands rest comfortably in your lap. Perhaps your eyes will want to close so you have no visual distraction. Is that better? Sorry, I just was asked to remove my mask. There we go. All right. So just taking a moment, and I invite you to feel the length of your spine. Just feel as if the top of your head is reaching for the sky, and there's a little space created between each of those vertebrae in your back. And as you do that, it opens space in the front of your body as well. And draw your attention to your heart, that beautiful, beautiful organ that beats at the center of your chest and fills you with life and emanates that life into the world. I invite you to, in your mind's eye, look up and to the left where you could retrieve a beautiful memory, something that makes you feel wonderful, happy or joyous, maybe peaceful and serene. Just retrieve that memory and the strong feelings of feeling so wonderful. And as you hold on to that feeling, I now invite you to breathe into your heart, as if your breath could go directly into your heart. Sensing the divine love light energy that is around us, that is all around us and flows through us, breathe it directly into your heart and allow it to magnify that wonderful feeling created by that memory. Feel your heart and the capacity for your heart to emanate that love expanding with each breath, in and out. If you need to, you might even say, ah, on the exhale to just release any tension and stress you might be holding. What a beautiful sound. All that, ah, yeah, feels good. Go ahead. Breathe in that love light energy right into your heart. Just feel it. And allow that love light energy to flow through your entire body, to flow up into that beautiful brain and connect that love energy from your heart to that thinking part of you. And draw your attention back to your heart. And I'll invite you to imagine that you can see that love light energy, feel it, sense it, whatever it is for you. Become aware of it coming into your body and flowing out with every breath. And on your next breath, I'll invite you to come back to being present in this space, retaining that beautiful love light energy and that feeling that you created within yourself. Just when you're ready. No rush. We're here all morning. So beautiful. Thank you. My plan. Sit down and write out a talk to deliver today. You know, I do this all the time. I sit down at my computer and I kind of sit there and wait for inspiration. And then I just start to type, see what happens. Except that wasn't happening. And I thought, no worries. You know, it's a week before. I've got the whole week yet, right? No big deal. God's plan. I get a phone call Monday night. Grandma's gone. I said, what? Grandma's gone. I said, Amanda, what are you saying? No, she's gone. I thought Mom was kidding. Well, people don't joke about that sort of thing, Amanda. I know, but I couldn't believe it, so I phoned Dad. And he said, yeah, Grandma's gone. But how can that be? I just talked to her yesterday. She was in great health. I just talked to her like twice on Sunday. She was in great health. She was happy. Everything was going her way. She was positive. She was upbeat. And you know, she was an interesting person. She always was very opinionated and very strong and did things her way. Well, she did it her way this time too. She didn't show up for meals on Monday, so they went to check on her after dinner. And they found her sitting in her chair where she'd sat down for a nap and didn't wake up. And I found some consolation in that, for sure. And I chatted with Amanda a little bit more, and then I said, Amanda, I've got to go, because it really hit me. And I hung up the phone, and I cried so hard. I grieved so deeply. And I thought, wow, I can't do this forever. Oh, yeah, right. Yes, you can. You can feel this all the way through. It's one of the unity teachings, right? When you feel something, you feel it. You feel it all the way through, and it will pass. And I did that. I mean, short of wailing, boy, did I grieve Monday night. And it was really hard because at the time that I got the phone call, my beautiful, beloved husband was actually doing a live show down in the basement studio, and so I couldn't even tell him. I was there, left in my grieving. Beautiful, perfect. No distraction about telling anybody, no going into the story, just be with the emotion and feel it. And I woke up Tuesday morning, and I felt amazing. I was filled with gratitude, so much gratitude for having had this beautiful woman in my life for like 36 years. I remember her saying, when my dad and her got married, now, you know, I have no intention of replacing your mom. You don't have to call me mom, but I'd really like to be your friend. And it took a while for that to happen. We butted heads a lot. I mean, I was in my 20s. How old would she have been? In her 50s. We both had our opinions about how the way the world should work. We had our preferences, and they didn't always match. But I watched her evolve and grow over the years, and you would think that she was a student of the Unity teachings, even though she'd never heard of Unity and didn't know what it was. But I saw her learn to live the principles of Unity. You know, she really believed that there's this God that's everywhere and that it's in us, and we'd better live by that, you know, just be who you want to see in the world. And the woman I knew when we first got married, I would never have described that way. But the woman who fell asleep in her chair and didn't wake up, I definitely describe her that way. And I just felt so blessed to have her in my life. And I've carried that feeling all week long. It's been amazing. Like, I can't even really grieve anymore. I feel like that's all been replaced with this amazing gratitude and appreciation. And I'm not naive. Maybe it'll pop up sometime. I had a little moment. I was making some borscht on one day this week out of beets from our garden, and I had this thought, I gotta phone Mum, because I started calling her Mum, M-U-M. I gotta phone Mum and tell, Mom, I'm making borscht. So, the week went by, and I didn't write a talk. My plan? I'll probably get up in the middle of the night on Saturday night, like I've been doing all week long, and then I'll be inspired to write my talk. Nope. God's plan. Sleep almost through the night, except to get up and go pee once, and wake up an hour or two later than you normally do, and be ready to come up here and share something. I have no idea what. Perfect. What was God's plan? Trust. Have faith. Know that if you're open and if you're in that heart coherence, in that place of love, whatever you need to say, whatever people need to hear will come forward. How beautiful. I had another one of those moments. It was early morning. I was in a bit of rush, didn't have a lot of time, but I decided my plan was I was going to have a nice hot breakfast and be ready to go. No problem, right? God's plan. As I reach into the freezer to pull out the container of rolled oats, the little container of sea buckthorn berries falls out of the fridge and breaks. As I look at bright orange berries all over my kitchen floor, I hear Katie saying, now that was not in my highest good. For those of you who heard Katie's talk a few weeks ago, she talked about carefully setting her son's birthday cake that she had made just a few hours beforehand with great love and care. This beautiful guitar cake sitting on top of the cooler that when she went over this speed bump fell right off the cooler and onto the floor of the car, and her saying, well, that was not in my highest good. And as I looked at those bright orange berries all over my light-colored floor, thinking, wow, those could stain, that is not in my highest good, I had to laugh. God's plan? Just accept that what is. No need to get uptight about it. Just start picking up those little berries and wiping the floor and have some faith and trust that they're not going to stain. And they didn't. It was all fine and good. I even managed to get my porridge made and get out the door pretty much in time. Now, we had this conversation about what being on time is this morning. Yeah, my husband said 5 minutes early is on time, right? For me, on time is... It's 7 o'clock on the nose. I'm here for my 7 o'clock appointment. And honestly, his version of on time is at least 10 minutes early. But he's kind of over the years gone with 5 minutes to give me a little bit of leeway. Still doesn't quite happen. Hey. Dear, yep. So... What awed me about Katie's talk and her comment, because I would stop right there. It was God's plan to give me an experience of what is, and remain calm and have a little faith and trust. But when Katie had her experience, she took that deeper and she examined, what was behind her reaction. She had a really interesting reaction, and she talked about going into that thought about it being irresponsible and all of that. And I thought, wow. That's living the unity teachings in action. Like, just to dig deeper and really look at what's there. And I don't know, again, my plan, read that article in the newsletter that was beautifully provided with the link to unity.org. I wrote it down so I'd remember. The article was called Divine Order in the Midst of Chaos. Perfect, an article about order, which is what I'm supposed to be talking about. Okay. Chaos is an order we do not yet understand, said the gentleman who wrote the article. That was on a sign in the home of a fellow This was back in the 70s. He was in his 20s. He was hitchhiking. Some professor picked him up, gave him a ride, actually took him home to his place, served him lunch, and that sign was on the professor's wall. Chaos is an order we do not yet understand. Now, my plan, read that article ahead of time. Oops, read the article ahead of time? No. God's plan, read it this morning at 8 o'clock and skim it really quickly and get the gist of what it's about. But what I got to was the fact that he talked about how this quote speaks to the limitations of human knowledge and understanding. Yeah, we don't necessarily know and understand everything, especially how this is supposed to unfold and why. And it also speaks to the idea that even what seems arbitrary and chaotic could be part of a greater universal order and harmony. And I don't know if you've ever had any experiences where you think, this is not in my highest good, this can't be right. And you can't see it in the moment, you can't even see it a week from now, maybe not even a month from now, but maybe a few years later. There is some sense of, oh, maybe that's why it happened the way it did, because now look at where I'm at, and I wouldn't have been here if it weren't for what happened there. I could give you a million personal examples. You probably could spend some time thinking of your own. So, my plan? After John Burgess delivered his brilliant talk and talked so much about the 12 Powers of Man, written by Charles Fillmore, I decided it would be brilliant to read that book, especially the chapter on order, because that's what I'm speaking about. It'll give me great inspiration, right? So I think, yes, that's what I will do. So I asked John, he says, well, it's actually Katie's copy. I borrowed it from her and I'm returning it to her. And so I go to Katie and she says, well, actually, I'm loaning it to Paul because Paul's already spoken for it. And I'm thinking, but no, I have to read it. So I go to Paul and say, Paul, are you attached to reading this book right away? Or could I have it for a week and read that chapter and I'll bring it back to you next week? God's plan? Nope, not even going to be here that next week. Can't deliver the book back to Paul. No problem. So I've got the book for another week. I read the book. I bring it back last week and say to Paul, I actually really haven't finished reading this book. Is it okay if I hang on to it for another week? Yeah, not a problem. Take all the time you need. Oh, well, I'll only need this week. I don't know. As a kid, I used to love reading, and I made so much time to read, and I just feel like there's no time in my day. See, because there are these things that happen, like my father-in-law's in the hospital, and it's harvest time, and my stepmom passed away, and there's all these things that happen that get in the way of sitting down to read. So, God's plan. You need time to read this book, so I'm going to wake you up at 3:30 every morning this week so that you get a chance to read that book. And I know it's God's plan because I was not exhausted and tired, even though I was up at 3:30 or 4 every morning reading the book, which is very brilliant and which I still haven't finished because, as John warned us, it was written in 1930, and the languaging is a little bit challenging to work through, and it's not a speed read, let me tell you. It takes quite a bit of work to read through that book, but there's so much brilliant stuff in it. And one of the brilliant things that I encountered, I think just yesterday at 4 in the morning, was that talk about how you want to feel your emotions all the way through, and not do the spiritual bypassing. We've heard that phrase a lot from various speakers in the past. And I actually wondered, nobody's really explained what spiritual bypassing is exactly. So there it was, the opportunity to say, oh, but I know how to change my focus, and I know how to be positive, and I'll shift my focus, and I'll look at what's good. And that's spiritual bypassing, because the real thing to be dealt with that's causing that emotion still has to be dealt with. So we're no longer spiritual bypassing when we do the thing that Katie did and looked at what's behind that. Why did I have that thought? That was reckless of me. I mean, really, it was reckless to put the cake on the on the cooler instead of on the seat. Like, I wouldn't call that reckless, but it triggered something from before that needed to be dealt with, and she dealt with it. So there it is, spiritual teaching in practice, right there, written by Charles Fillmore, son of a gun. Hey, this is a pretty good book. It really does have some good stuff in it, I think. Huh. So last night I spoke to Reverend Pat Ball, and I said to her, how are you doing? She's here in Calgary, for those who don't know. She's getting ready to move her house. She's packing everything up, and she's bought a new place in Niagara on the lake, and she's packing up her stuff here in Calgary and moving there. And she said, so, sweetie, I see that you're speaking tomorrow. Are you all prepared? Well, as prepared as I can be in this moment. And she goes, well, may I offer you some tips, dear? So yeah, have some quotes that you like, that you think might be valuable. You know, keep the 5 principles in mind, and various tips that she offered. And I thought, oh, have some quotes. Okay, well, I got the quote from the article. That's good. Let's see, what else? How about our theme for the month? Understanding divine order. I can embrace paradox and navigate chaos while keeping my balance. And I'd have to say that actually that's been pretty true. I've really done a pretty good job of keeping my balance through all of this, through getting ready to come up here and stand and speak and not knowing what I'm going to say, more or less. Blah, blah, blah. But the one thing I want to tell you is this. In Charles Fillmore's book, The 12 Powers of Man, the chapter on divine order isn't even called divine order. It's called spiritual law and order. And it's the longest chapter in the book. And the whole first 10 pages of the 20 pages is talking about how we should not give in to organizational rules, regulations, and religious dogma. I kid you not, the whole first half of the chapter is all about that. Here's the quote. No man-made law is strong enough or true enough or exact enough to be a permanent guide for anyone. Let Spirit be your guide, as it was my guide today. Thank you. Let us take a moment and just be quiet. And rather than the traditional meditation, I'm sorry, you're all ready to do a lead-in song. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and just listen to these words that came to me as I was thinking one morning about what to talk about today. It's God's plan, not my plan, that helps me grow. It's God's plan, not my plan. I'll never know how the plans I make can go so astray. Yet in the end, it's all a better way. Even when it feels this can't be in my highest good, this offers me much more than I ever thought it could. It's God's plan, not my plan, that helps me grow. It's God's plan, not my plan. I'll never know how I'm so set in having my own way. Expect so much in each and every day, when it serves me so much better just to let it go, to relax and breathe and slip into the natural flow. It's God's plan, not my plan, that helps me grow. It's God's plan, not my plan. I'll never know how things I want to do and want to see may be altered or never come to be. Yet what shows up and takes over plans I have in place eventually will put a big smile upon my face. It's God's plan, not my plan, that helps me grow. It's God's plan, not my plan. I'll never know that there's a plan so much bigger than just me, more than I can imagine or see. And when I just let go and I live with trust and faith, I live a life of peace and ease and greater grace. It's God's plan, not my plan, that helps me grow. It's God's plan, not my plan. I'll follow.